voice acting now for, let me work out the math, I should know this by now, 8 years. Yeah, I got my first voice acting job 8 years ago.
This place was beautiful, and my focus was to destroy it. I decided to do nothing. It's so pretty.
I have been voice acting since 1998. So that's what, 15 years? What made me decide was that it's funny because I mean I came out to LA to do acting just in general, and I was working in a children's theater, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. You know, I got to play all sorts of different characters and different you know, just the high energy with the kids. It was great, but you know, it didn't pay a whole lot. So I was like, what else was kind of like that? And it was animations when I came up with it. Oh, you know, it's like children's theater. It's fun. You can play all sorts of characters, and it's wacky.
I basically fell into it, so it wasn't like a lot of voice actors I think a lot of voice actors do the whole like, I want to be a voice actor. That's how I'm going to make a living. That's what I'm going to do. It's what I love to do. Now I'll start that process. For me, I was working for a children's entertainment company, and they got the job of voicing Angelina Ballerina and Jake is the Pig, and I'd been doing all their live theater shows, and I guess I had the youngest, squeakiest voice, so they called me up and said, come on in, we have this job for you.
So I started taking classes, and about a year after I started, one of my classes had a casting director, and she called me after our class and asked if I could do a Chinese accent, and I said, how long do I have? And she said, 3 days, and I said, yeah. So in 3 days I learned a Chinese accent, and that was Metal Gear Solid, and that was my first job. And after that she helped me get my agent, and I've been with that same agent since then.
Snake, like Shakespeare said, knots had all spent, while our desire is got without content. Basically, it means that your desire can get you into trouble if you're not careful.
And from that job, I was just like, this is a cool, I didn't really think about that as a medium before. I'd always just been an actress and a children's entertainer. So the minute I was introduced to it, I was like, I would like to do this a lot, please. And it's just sort of developed. And when I moved to America, because of those two jobs, it was pretty easy to keep it going. Voiceover is an extremely hard industry to crack. I think it's harder than normal acting, and it's unfortunate because everybody really wants to be part of it. Like if you talk to any actor, they're like, oh, I really want to get into voiceover. How do you do that? I'm like, there's a lot of, I hate this word, but luck. And luck in the sense that you really can be amazing, and you just miss out, more so than even acting.
But yeah, not really any college connections or anything. It was just taking classes, and you know, and being lucky enough to be in a class with a teacher who could also hire me. So like in voiceover, you can get away with, you know, hiring, you know, one ethnicity even though they're playing a different one. But she likes to, you know, hire an Asian actress if she's casting for an Asian person. So that's kind of how she asked me to do it.
My inspiration for, I think, my voiceover career really came from those first two jobs. I love children, and I love the world of children's TV and children's entertainment and that fun playfulness. And being able to be a 7-year-old English mouse and a 5-year-old Irish boy pig for a job, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I think the inspiration for me really came from the fun of it. I've always been someone that's chased the opportunity to play and get paid for it. So it was a very obvious kind of choice, and I think some of us are better at some things, and I'm definitely, one of my strengths is creating silly voices. So So it just seemed, inspired's probably not the right word for that, but it just was like, this is the best thing ever. Let's do this more.
Well, I mean, like I said, I really just enjoy the energy of it and working with kids. Now, I don't work directly with kids anymore, but they're in my mind as the audience when I'm doing, you know, kid-geared things, you know, stuff that are geared for kids.
I'm not leaving without you!
No, I'll have to cover your escape. It's the only way.
Katma.
I'm in charge here, Kerouac. Now go!
But I don't know, I really love it. I mean, I've loved acting since I was a little kid, you know, and I've been acting since then. But when I got into voiceover, it's just a whole different thing, because it's sort of like you're acting in your head. It's like the theater of the mind, you know? And I love that aspect, that I get to create the world in my head, because normally we don't get to see, you know, the character, we don't get to see the environment, it's all just what you make up. And then I like being able to play all sorts of different things, you know. I could be a granny from, you know, Timbuktu, or I could be a little boy, you know, I could be a baby, I could be, you know, and I love that variety, you know, whereas if you're on camera, it's sort of like you're kind of stuck with who you look like, you know. So that was that. And then also the people in voiceover are just so nice. I mean, there's no, you know, big egos, and, you know, the directors are just usually really laid back and fun, and we're just having a good time, you know. It's so much easier to be in voiceover. Plus you can have a life, you know, you don't have to go away on set for like, you know, 3 months, 6 months to shoot a film. You can be home, and I can have classes, or I could, you know, just have a life outside of work. And so those were like the main things that I liked. And once I was able to start working full-time in voiceover, I stopped doing it on camera. I just was like, I'd rather be doing voiceover.
Voice acting to me has been, more than anything, an opportunity that's been afforded to me that means I can connect with so many incredible people. It is a great job, it is fun, it's amazing to create characters, it's amazing to be part of shows and video games that are wonderful and amazing. But I have to say, if it really was boiling it down to what it is, it's given me a chance to connect with people all around the world that love these games and love these shows, that appreciate the work you do. And for me, with all the things that messages and all the stuff that I'm working on, it's given me a chance to share my story with a lot of people. I mean, we wouldn't even be sitting here right now if it wasn't for voice acting.
Well, again, like I said, it's like the theater of the mind, you know, where you get to create your own world and your own characters, and, you know, basically you are also the other character too, because a lot of the times you don't have the other actor with you. You're doing your own lines by yourself, so you have to, you know, react off to whatever's going on in your mind as well. Or in the case of audiobooks, you are everybody. You know, you get to play everybody.
It's one of the best things that has ever happened to me is voice acting.
I don't know, I mean, I guess it's a lot of fun, at least for me. It's a passion, it's a way of expressing myself, and a great way to make a living. A great way to make really cool friends that are really neat people. Great. I mean, they're just awesome. You know, I'm always amazed when people even know who I am, for one thing. But like, I'll do like a Comic-Con or something, and people will come up with, you know, different, you know, games, or, you know, comic books or something that, you know, from different genres, so they know that I did all these different things, and they want me to fight it, and I'm just amazed. I'm just like, really? You know I did that?
The feedback from the fans is amazing. In a one-word answer, it's fun and silly. And if we're to focus on the positive, I'll get to the negative. But to focus on the positive, it is just the coolest to have people write and say, you know, oh my gosh, Vanille is a character that got me through college, or it gets me through school, her positivity, her happiness, I really connect with her. In the same way with Star Wars, they're like, you know, I love how she's so strong. But people write to you to tell you that you've like changed their life or made a difference or and it's like, but I'm not really, it's not me, but it is me. But so there's a real closeness.
Worse than kill him. Torture, public display. He can't go through that. Not for me.
And I've also had so many people tell me what an impact I've had on their life, which is kind of weird when you think, oh, well, you know, I just do video games or, you know, cartoons and stuff like that. But like, for example, one girl, she told me that she was really, really poor growing up, and they actually had to like run an extension line for electricity to their neighbors. You know, they lived in like a mobile home, and the only thing she had was a video game player and Metal Gear Solid, and she just played it. She said it saved her life because she was able to just get through really difficult times, kind of playing the characters and, you know, getting involved with the story and immersing herself in that world, you know, to get her through a really difficult period of her life. And I was just like, wow, you know, when we were recording that, I had no idea that it would actually be so, you know, important to some people. So, of course, not everyone's like that, but it was neat to hear stories like that.
However, as some people know, one of my characters doesn't always get the best fan review. She does from a lot of people, but Vanille has a lot of haters as well. And it's definitely been challenging at first. Now I just kind of think it's funny. But there's nothing quite like Googling your name and getting, she's awful. You're like, oh, no I'm not. I don't think I'm awful. You might like my character, but I'm not awful. So I think the tough part is really being able to separate and go, okay, these fans have their own issues. They perhaps don't like perky, happy people, and that's not my fault. But it is funny if you take away the fact that they're threatening you. But it's part of life. People really connect with video games, and my character is kind of ridiculous. For the first half of the game, that's what I love, is that most of the haters came out in the first like few days and were like, I hate her, she's disgusting or horrible. They didn't say much once it was revealed why she was doing all that. And I felt like going, can we go back and like put a addendum to all these reviews?
And I like the idea that we can influence people in a positive way, you know. It's not, hopefully not just about the violence and things that, you know, affects people, but some of the good things too. So it's pretty cool. And then also meeting really cool people like yourself. My biggest accomplishment? Just being able to make a living, I think. I think that's my biggest accomplishment. Because that's really all I've ever wanted, was to be a working actor, you know, to do what I love to do. And I've been able to do that. So really, to me, that just to be able to do what I love is the biggest accomplishment.
Ooh. Well, this is an interesting answer. What's my biggest accomplishment in voiceover acting? There's many different answers to that, actually. I think Vanille is definitely the most famous character. There's no doubt about it. She's the one that I have the most fans from. Ensign Raina Temple in Star Wars, to me, was the coolest thing ever, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So being able to be in Star Wars was amazing. But I have to say, in a way, I think my biggest accomplishment happened 2 days ago, which was really interesting for me. When I go in and record my voiceovers, despite the voice that I have right now because I've lost it, it's always childish and perky and silly, and like, that's the voice that I do. I'm always the happy, bubbly one. And out of nowhere, my agent gave me a copy for an audition for a job where she's a hard, sad, angry, serious scientist. And I went into the recording booth to read this character that is so different than anything I've ever read. And I've never been more proud of an audition. It was just exactly how I wanted it to sound. It's exactly how I'd want to be represented. It was very real, very hard, I've been going through a really tough, but in a good way, time of hard work, endless hours, very much telling the story of what this voice-over audition was. So I just connected with it. I was crying. It was real. And my agent at the end, who was listening, was like, "Whoa, where did that girl come from?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I like it." And he's like, "I like it too."
Okay, well, there's a couple different types. There's one where you go into your agent's office and they will give you copy, be it, promo or commercial or, animation, video games, and you record the audition at your agent's. And then they mail it off for you.
Most agencies have their own recording booth, and so you either have a booth director at your agency, or in my case, my agent does a lot of the recording. So you turn up, well, you give them the sides the day before, so I'm usually, or a day or two before, I'm emailed them and I set up a time to come in. And then I turn up and sit in the green room and talk to all the other awesome voiceover actors that go to my agency. It's always fun. We all sort of know each other now. And then I'll go into the booth and me and my agent will record the audition. And if we're happy with what I've done, like on the couple of days ago, he just was like, "Yeah, that's great. We don't need to do it again." But a lot of the time we'll work it out and, make some changes, and he'll redirect me. And then he sends it off and I never hear again. And once in a blue moon, I hear something.
Also, you can do it from home. You can audition in your home booth or using your own equipment and then email it to your agent, and then they'll send it off as well. Or you can actually go to a casting place, be it the studio or a casting office, and then usually you'll just do one audition for the casting director. So the process then would be you get the copy, you get to look it over, you make your acting choices, decide what kind of character you want to present for this, and then you perform it. And they'll usually give you some direction, like, oh, can you be more serious here? Can you be funnier here? Can you be more, whatever on the different lines? And then you adjust as best you can, and then usually you'll either get a call back or you'll find out if you got cast or not later, like days later usually, or sometimes months later.
But you don't ever expect to hear afterwards. You don't know if you got it or not. You just assume you didn't because you didn't hear. But sometimes, like with video games, it can be 6 months. With Star Wars, I did the audition for Star Wars 7 months before I got the job. So I just assumed it was gone, and then one day my agent called me and goes, "Remember that Star Wars audition you did? You booked it."
There's so many things I enjoy. That's a tough one. Well, okay, like I said, I love playing all the different characters. I love being able to play, just about anything you can think of. I've played zombies and aliens and just about anything you can think of, and probably stuff that you can't think of.
My favorite part of voice acting, I think, would probably have to be just being able to play and be silly. It's like, how many jobs in the world would it be like, we're going to put you in a room by yourself, so no one's watching, or maybe there's a few guys watching, but they know you need to do this, and we're going to ask you to be a fly, or a mouse, or a frog, or an elephant, and do whatever you have to do to make that happen.
Being able to just play, just having a good time with it. I don't know. And sort of the freedom it gives you, because you can be doing a lot of different, characters and shows and whatnot, but no one really knows who you are, what you look like, so you're not like mobbed by people. Not that I would be, but but that you can, live your life and just do fun things and no one knows,
And it's fun because you get to create and be silly and make voices and just play and go on an adventure. So it's like being an actor, but as a on stage or on camera actor, you're not very often playing fantastical characters that don't exist in real human life. So being able to be a Martian or an alien, these are limited roles on camera. But in voice acting, anything's possible. So I kind of enjoy that anything's possible, it's all a bit crazy thing. But I think also equal to that is the fans. That's one of my favorite things about voice acting is the incredible fans that have a lot of them become friends. I think the most difficult part of voice acting is the same thing as with normal like face acting, as we'll call it today. Apparently, it's the waiting and the not having a job and the wanting a job and missing doing it. Because when you do it, it's so fun and you just love it, and it's what you want to, it's what you do for a living. So it's like saying to an accountant, oh, you really love being an accountant? Cool. We're only going to let you do that once every 2 months.
Probably just breaking in, because it's very competitive. Like on camera, when you're competing, you're usually competing against other people your own age, and so they don't really have much more experience than you do. But in voiceover, you're actually competing against people who've been in the industry for 30 years. And you may be just breaking in, but because you sound the same, you're going to be in the same auditions, and there's that, and the pool of actors who are getting interested in doing voiceover is getting bigger and bigger. There's people, who are auditioning now through the internet, so you're basically competing against almost everybody in the U.S. as opposed to, just a small group of actors, the way it used to be.
So it's a tough situation because there's only so much voiceover work and there's only so much voiceover work you can do, and the waiting and the wishing and the auditioning is tough. Whether or not you're secure and okay with yourself and everything's good and I've got lots of incredible other stuff that I do, I still, every day when I get a voiceover audition, I'm like, man, I really wish I could just get that job so that I could do it. So yeah, I think the toughest part is the waiting.
But, so I think the competition and just getting in, getting people to get to know you, getting a resume of work together, that's probably the hardest. And I got really lucky, just kind of getting in with that one director and then getting my agent through her, because actually getting the agent is probably the hardest thing to do. Oh, let's see. Well, one, everything in voiceover is based on acting. So, a lot of people are like, oh, well, people told me I have a really good voice, so I should get into voiceover. Well, that's true. Part of it is having a nice voice, but that's not necessarily mandatory. People can have all different kinds of voices. But the thing is that it all comes down to acting. You gotta know, you gotta have techniques, you gotta know how to create a character, you gotta know about what makes something dramatic and have tension, and what creates conflict. There's all these things that actually do go into it that you kind of don't see on the written page.
I think the best piece of advice for people who want to be voice actors is to play. To really develop your sense of silliness with your voices. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Don't worry about sounding like someone else. Don't worry about getting the right this, that, or the other. Start practicing and letting go of any like, oh my gosh, I sound silly, or is somebody listening? All of the things that are not going to help you for a voiceover career.
So I would say take as many acting classes as you can. You don't necessarily have to get a degree. I got a degree in theater, but I'm not sure how useful it is, really. I mean, just taking classes at a really good school would be enough, I think.
Voiceover work requires you to completely let go of your inhibitions. So making sure that you've got all your inhibitions sorted is the #1 step. Then It's about getting a good demo reel. Whether that means creating it and putting it together yourself or with the help of someone, it doesn't have to be work you've actually done. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people just record voiceovers and put it together and make it sound like a reel. And that's fine, because it shows what you do and they don't really care. They just want to hear what you can do.
I would say make sure you have another way of supporting yourself that you enjoy because there could be many years where you're not actually making enough to support yourself. I would also say that I would not try to be a voice actor unless you enjoy every part of it. And that's auditioning, that's learning new accents, that's learning new characters, that's driving all over town to get to auditions, that's being rejected hundreds and hundreds of times over. Because that's all part of it. Just the acting part on the job is sort of like the cherry on the whole thing, on the cake, but you have to enjoy the whole part of it because that's really where you spend the majority of your time, is doing all the other things. So, I mean, I have had, people ask me about it and they're like, oh, but I just want to act, I don't want to do everything else. And I'm like, but that's kind of the whole part of the deal, So that is a couple other things. And then, to create characters, just keep your eyes open. Look at your family, look at your friends, look at celebrities and try and do your own impression of them. And then that, even if it's a bad impression, it's a good character all its own,
And with that, you're supposed to get an agent, and if you can, that's awesome. It's tougher and tougher all the time now to get agents, but you got to give it a go. And then it's just a matter of staying on top of it and keeping your sense of play and your belief in yourself, no matter how many times you audition and you don't get it. Because I was really at that point this week where I was like, maybe I'm not meant to be a voiceover actor anymore, because it's been a long time since I've booked a job. But then you go in and you do a good job and you're like, no, I'm meant to be a voiceover artist. It's all good. So keeping the belief that you got into this because of the play and you got into it because of the fun, and don't ever forget that. And I guess the last bit of advice is just do it. If you want to do something, do it. There's no point in not doing it, because then you won't have done it no matter what. But if you at least give it a try, then if you don't do it, at least you tried. But if you try and you do it, then you did it. That's my words of wisdom for today. Do it.